All right, I'm going to get started. So this is our home page for our website. You'll notice here the mandatory electronic filing, which I'm sure you're all aware of, that if you need to file any reports with our agency, it's going to have to be done electronically. That is because the commission had decided on that, and that is for starting for the calendar year of 2021. So starting January, any activity that needs to go on a report is going to be filed electronically. We're going to go over some basics here. My name is Maite. I'm a compliance officer. We're going over the R1 today. And with that, I mean that if you are spending over $5,800, if a candidate is spending over $5,800 for a single candidate committee, again, that changes with a joint candidate committee depending upon the candidates, you will need to file the R1. And that is why we're going to go over this. If the candidate is not spending over $5,800, you are not required to file the R1 electronically, but you are required to file the A1 electronically. The D1, C1, and all the other short forms are available on our website. I will show you where that is. Let's take a look at that now. So from the home screen here, you'll see on the right-hand side, it says Advice for Filers. All the way at the bottom, we have electronic filing. This is where you're going to see the R1 and R3 for electronic filing. There are videos, so pre-recorded videos that you can take a look at after this instruction is done. It's going to go a basic overview as well as broken down into different sections, so you can take a look at that later as a refresher. Down here, the registration and PIN application form, it is again also on the right-hand side, and then short forms. So short forms, whether it's regular candidates or school board candidates, you'll find those in here. You click the D1, DX, A1, C1s, E1. All of these reports here are short forms. You do not need to log into the R1 program in order to access those, so just be aware of that. We'll go back to the e-filing. But for the purposes of this tutorial, this is solely for explaining the R1 to you. So if you're having other technical difficulties with this webinar, please call our IT department at 609-292-8700. We do have a quick start PDF that's available as a handout in this program. It is also on our e-filing page, so I will point to that as we get to it. I'm going to demonstrate how to set up your login and password to enter into the e-filing program. It's going to allow you to log in from any computer to enter in the data and file reports. You may pose questions through the questions feature, as I had asked earlier. You'll see that in the drop-down in that menu bar on the right-hand side for GoToWebinar. So just be aware that I am not going to be unmuting mics for everyone, so you will need to type in your question, and this is as it relates to the program. It's not a compliance seminar detailing whether filing is required or scenarios for filing. If you have questions about that, you can always contact our compliance staff at the main number 609-292-8700, or you can also attend a training session, which we do have available online for you to register for, and then you will get a treasurer training certificate. There is no treasurer training certificate that you will receive at the end of this. This is just for a demonstration for an R1. Also, I'm not going to be addressing the R3 directly, but the programs are almost exactly the same, so whatever you're going to learn in here can be applied to that R3. The G1 is also available on our website for gubernatorial candidates. Our website is updated regularly to notify the public of any changes to the filing dates and requirements. Please be aware of that and take a look at that on our website. The main screen, the main page, which we were just at, once you go there, you will see this pop up. This here is going to give you information. This is telling you electronic filings mandatory, and here the COVID update. If there's anything that needs to be submitted, we will have information in there. So you can take a look at that. That's basic information for everyone, updated regularly. So we're going to go over to the e-filing program. Remember, before we go there though, you will have to get a registration and a PIN. So let's see here. We click on this. Over here, the very first time you're coming in, you're going to see it says to register. When you register for this program, you're going to need your electronic signature, which you can get the registration and PIN request form here as well. But you will need that before you start the program. So make sure you do it before you need to start filing with us. I recommend doing this in advance of a filing date. If you already have a reg and PIN, you do not need a new one. Your electronic signature remains the same no matter what type of report you file electronically with our agency. And this applies to anyone that's going to be involved with the reporting for the committee. Everyone is required to have their own reg and PIN along with their own unique email address to access the program. This email does not need to be the same one that you used when you originally submitted your reg and PIN. After you have successfully created an account, you do have the ability to change your email should you need to in the account tab within the program. But again, everyone has to have their own unique email. So if you set it up and you try to get somebody else's reg and PIN with your same email for this program, it will give you an error saying that that cannot be certified by that other person. So just be aware of that. There are two ways to register and create an account. As I had mentioned, you can do it for yourself, or you can invite or be invited by someone who's already created the account. We're going to address that once we create a cycle in the program. So over here, I just want to go over some quick little details on this page. Again, so register, reg and PIN application, reporting dates are here, seminar training registration, all of that in there on this home page. When you click on register, for the very first time that you're trying to get into the program, you're going to have to put in your registration number and your PIN number. We do not automatically supply that for candidates. Everyone who needs to get their electronic signature needs to submit an application for the registration and PIN. You're going to put in your email. Please don't try to contact us with the emails that I'm using in this program. They are not monitored. I have never checked them, except for when I set up the account. You're going to put in your password, retype your password, check the button. There is a certain amount of criteria here for creating a password. Make sure you fulfill that so that you can create it. And then you're going to click register. When you register for the very first time, the program is going to pop you over to this screen. This is the home page essentially here for the e-filing program. You're going to go into this section for the R1 because it's for candidates. So single candidate, joint candidate committee, election-related committees, which would be political committees. Political party committees, continuing political committees, and legislative leadership committees are here under the CPC, PPC, LLC, which we're not going to go over today. But the program, as I said, is almost identical for both of those. So we're going to go into here for the R1. Once you come into here, you can do this. Enter in the committee name. Remember, the committee name is going to be the name that is the same for your bank account. It is the name, if it's a single candidate, it has a minimum of surname and office sought, so just be aware of that. Okay, and select the position that you're running for. We're going to select primary. See here. And then remember, this is the drop down. Please make sure you select the correct election. If you select the wrong one in here, you will be able to edit it, but just be aware of that beforehand. It does affect what reports you're going to be able to file with us. And over here, your desired role. This is also very important. I'm going to select that I am the candidate and the treasurer. If you are just the candidate starting this up, you'll be the candidate only. If you are only the treasurer, select only the treasurer. We do have roles and permissions for this particular program. If you select that, it's going to pop up the roles and permissions. What can each person do with the e-filing program? Now, what you can do with the e-filing program is not the same as what you have to do. Like a chairperson would never certify a report for the R1. They're not required to certify that, but they do have the option of getting to that screen. Now, let's look here. After I've put all that information in, I'm going to click Save. Now we're going to go to reporting periods. In the reporting periods, it's very important to indicate the year that you are starting with reports. So yes, my election year is going to be 2021. If, however, I start a year before my election, so say my election isn't until 2022, what is my report year? Well, it would be 2021 because we are in 2021. So you will need to put in 2021 in here. If you have decided, okay, I had a couple of reports that I filed on paper last year, I want to redo them in the e-file program, that's great, you can do that. It'll be a 2021 election year, but you will start with 2020 as your start for filing reports. And that is very important to select the correct one in there because we can't go back and change that for the reports that are available for you to file. So if you wanted to file a January quarterly for this 2021 election year, you will have to select 2020 because that is the fourth quarter of 2020. Okay, we're going to make our first one the 29-day pre-election report. Go to Add First, Reporting Period. It's just going to verify in here, this is what you selected, so proceed to the first report. Now that you're in here, this is what you've selected. This is your start screen. This is where you're going to see what you just created, the year of your election right here, the report here. If you have more than one committee that you are filing for, you can always add another one. So say you're the treasurer for a single candidate as well as the joint candidate committee. You can go into here. It's going to bring you back to this main screen, and you're going to select continue for this and put in your joint candidate committee information. After you do that and set it up exactly as we had done a moment ago, that will give you a drop down in here with multiple files. So multiple candidates or joint candidate committee reports that you have set up. Remember to always check this, that you are in the correct reporting date and period and year. Sometimes candidates run election after election, so every couple of years. These won't be going away. You'll have them in your file. You can always amend reports later. Even many years later, you can amend past reports through this program. You just have to select the correct one through the year and this reporting cycle. At the top of the page, it's also going to give you what you had started up, so just be aware of that. I already have a report that has been set up with contributions and expenditures so that I don't have to manually type everything in for you. So let's go to that one that's already been set up. So here we have our sample, the R1 webinar campaign. And in here, it's going to have the 29-day report, which I had set up already. First things first, midstream filers. Midstream filers, this tab means that if you had filed on paper previously, you're going to put in the cumulative to date amounts in the receipts and expenditures from the last report. What that does is it puts in your summary tables, and that will add to this report and future reports in order to get your true receipts and expenditures tables and the amounts for your account. The other part that's very important in here is if this is a brand new election for you, a brand new election cycle in the sense that you were not filing paper already, this is the first primary one, but you did run in the past and you're moving your loan and your outstanding obligations forward. You will need to add them through Add Midstream Loan. In this program, to pay off a loan, you have to have it entered into the system. What this does, though, in the midstream section, if you put it in as a regular loan through contributions, that's going to make it look like additional monies that you've received in that period. What you need to do is If it's an old one being moved forward to the selection, enter in the information as you had reported it previously, and that information down here. And once you do that, the program will then have it on the side for you to be able to select and repay. The same goes for, let's see here, let's go back. The same goes for the outstanding obligation. So if you're adding an outstanding obligation, you will enter that in here, the date and the amount. It's not going to be adding it as another expense in that particular period, but it is something that you can select in order to be able to pay it off. Okay. If you have multiples in there, or if you've saved something, or you're not sure if you did save it, you can click on Show List, and it's going to give you the list of things that you have entered in as outstanding obligations. So adding users, this is a very important first step. Remember, candidates and treasurers must sign reports. They are both required to have their signature on there. If you only have the candidate in here and you only certify as a candidate, you're missing the treasurer's signature. If you are acting as your own treasurer, you need to indicate that in this report. You can always edit it. So if you need to edit and change that now you have a new, you've decided to get someone outside as a treasurer, you can simply select that and unselect the treasurer and have only candidates selected and save it, and that will update the system. It is also going to give you this information in here, your reporting periods, the start and until when. So let's go back to the previous screen. Now, how do you add people to it? There are two methods. It's the plus new user. Plus new user is where you have the person's email address as well as their registration and PIN numbers. They share that with you so that you can assist them. If that is a case, you will put in their email, their registration and PIN number, and who they are with the report. You're going to have the start and end and click save. Once you click on save, they are going to receive an email. In that email, they will need to confirm that is their name and this is going to be their role in the program. Once they confirm that email, their name will populate in your this report users list. If they never confirm it in an email, their name will not appear here. If you use the same email as your own with their registration and PIN, it will not appear here. That will cause an error in the program. It has to be a distinct email address. Also make sure that you select the correct role for them in the program. So that's one way of doing it. This is a lot of times what I hear from people is that the candidate trusts the treasurer to fill out the report, and they just want to see the final report before it is submitted. They can always have that printed out and given to them, and they can look at it, or you can email them the PDF of the printed report before it is submitted so that they can approve of it that way. But you can certify this report on their behalf once they approve of it. Remember, having someone else fill out this report does not stop you from being required to maintain your information. So let's go back to the start. That's how to add people. Oh, that's a plus user. And then there's the other way, invite new user. Invite new user is you put in the email address of whoever it is that you're adding. So if I put in an email address and select candidate for that person, I will send them this email. They will click on that invitation, which is unique to the person. So if there are multiple candidates in a committee and you're trying to add them, you will have to send an email per person because that link is only for one entity to join, so it will not work for multiple people getting the same email. You will have to put in one and then click invite, put in the next one, then click invite for multiple candidates in a joint candidate committee. Now, once they receive that email, they will click on it. It will bring them back to the home screen where they are going to have to create a password before they can enter into the program. This way, anytime they want to come into the program with their email and their password, they're going to see this campaign committee in their list. When you invite a person to the program, they only have access to the report that you have invited them to. So, or sorry, the reporting cycle. So if I am Miss Smith running for council, and I invite my treasurer in there. But I'm also acting as a treasurer for another campaign committee. The person that I've invited into the Miss Smith for council is not going to have access to the other campaign for which I'm a treasurer. It's only going to be for the one thing that I've added them to. Okay, let's go back to the start screen. Now we're going to go into bank accounts. Before you can enter any contributions or expenditures, you have to have a bank account. So with your bank account, there are a few different types. You are required to have a main depository account for where your contributions are going to be received and expenditures made. Enter in that account information. We do have one set up. You can have multiple accounts. If that's the case, fill it out, save it. And you will see in here, you have to fill out the full information here. This does not prevent you from having to file the D1. You will still need to file the D1 report for your campaign, or D2 if it's a joint candidate committee. Now, looking at all the information in here, you'll see at the bottom right, default bank. If you have more than one account, then you will need to select the one that you want contributions and expenditures to come in and out of regularly. If you don't have that, then if you have the wrong one selected, the program automatically assumes that the first one you enter is the default. If you add another one, it's not going to be selected as default. You will have to select that account in a drop-down menu in the particular contribution or expenditure page. I will show you that momentarily. We also have stocks, bank CD, money market, or property owned by the campaign. If you have multiple accounts and you need to transfer funds from one account to the other, you will do it through this method in here. You'll put the main account, the source asset here, and then the target asset, you will go in the drop down and select the other account, the check number, or if it's electronically transferred, you could put that information in there, the date and the amount. If you would like a comment in there to explain to the public, because this will appear on the report as well, this comment section here, then you can always add that in there and then click on transfer, and the money just switches from the accounts in the program. Okay, let's go back to the start page. I recommend going back to the start page to see your information, make sure you're in the correct file with submitting it to our agency. Remember, there are many ways in a website to get to the same things. This is how I recommend to start with. If you feel more comfortable later, there are the quick links, which switches you back and forth. Again, in here, the quick start guide for how you start up this program is in there. Also, instructional videos. If you find yourself at a loss with how to enter contributions or expenditure, we have an overview video. They're all YouTube videos, so you can have access to that through the YouTube website. But that's there for your assistance. Now let's go to contributions. In contributions, you have multiple types of contributions. Make sure you're entering your contribution in the correct type. Once you fill this out, you can't just switch it to in-kind. If that was the case, you will have to delete it from the regular contribution and then re-enter it under the in-kind tab. Here you're going to enter in the individual. If it is a non-individual, you will uncheck the box and it becomes a non-individual. So just be aware of that before you start typing. When you switch that box before you save, no content will be moved over. So if you started writing in a business name under the last name and you switch it to the non-individual, that name gets wiped out. Okay. You will also need to put in the contributor type. So if it doesn't apply, then it doesn't apply and you do not have to select it. Do not check existing items. This would be if you don't want our program to automatically populate something. So let's see in here. Okay, so if I had already received a contribution or had entered this person in here before, and I click tab, it's going to give me this pop-up. If I don't want pop-ups to happen, I will select that do not check existing items. because if I have the same last name for 30 different people, then it's just going to keep popping this up. The benefit to this, however, is that if you receive more than receive a contribution repeatedly from the same entity, those need to be aggregated, and that is the benefit of this program. You can always select this, and you will see in here the previous amount that you had received from this entity. You can add the next amount. So if they gave you, let's say, a contribution of a check of $200, which it appears it is that you had received. If they turn around and then give you an in-kind contribution valued at $200, then you will need to go into in-kind. You can select them in that pop-up. It works exactly the same way. And then the aggregate amount, putting in the new amount received, it will add it to the aggregate, and there you will have it, and it will be disclosed on the report. So let's go back a little bit. I'm not going to save this, so it's going to tell me, do you want to leave? Yes. So after you've entered and saved a few contributions, if you can't remember or you need to correct one of those, you can go to show list. This will only populate the monetary contributions that we had added. If it was an in-kind, it's not going to appear under this one. It'll appear in the in-kind tab. But you can always select one of these, and you will see in here all their information and what I had reported, the date and the amount received. And then you can always change it, correct it, and then save your change. But when you save, it's going to say that it was saved up here. If you are in the 48-hour reporting period, then you will have to check the box that says 48-hour contribution. Then if that is the case, you will also be able to file your 48-hour notice through this program, but you have to select it. It doesn't automatically select those as contributions that are 48-hour expenditures or receipts. There's one other way to enter things in here. I just want to go over that quickly. You can search for contributions, or you can we have a data upload manager as well as a contributor header import. The data upload manager is going to include dates and amounts. So if you already have a spreadsheet set up with the names, addresses, dates, and amounts, you can go into here. You will need to have use the template that we have. You will need to have it transferred over to a CSV before you upload it, and it will move over to this program. This is what it's going to look like. Information that passes forward, that's what you'll need in here. If you only have header information, so the same people give contributions every election that a person runs for, and you just don't want to type everybody in all over again, you can always do it through the header. So they haven't given you a new contribution, but you don't want to retype everybody's name and address. You can bring that over. In here, this is what you'll have to use. You can download the template and also the list types, and then convert it to a CSV and upload it to our website in here. Another thing in here, if you need to search for contributions, you'll be able to put that information in here. Let me pause for 1 second to take a look at some questions. Okay, so a couple different things in here. Let's see if I can answer it. If you have multiple campaigns that you're a treasurer for, you will need to go back to that home page. I'm not sure if you heard me when I went over that before, but you will need to go back to the start and go into this drop down. If you're a treasurer for multiple campaigns and they are set up for different years, the first thing you need to do is change the year. So I had one started for 2019. I can select the 2019 one, and it gives me that 2019 report that I had worked on. And remember, that's going to appear at the top. If I want to go back to 2021, this is the only report that I have set up. If I had multiples, you would see a drop down in here and you would have to select that in there. If you have multiples for the same exact year, it should appear in here. If you are having a problem with your drop-down displaying multiple reports, please contact our office for some technical assistance. Our IT section will be able to assist you with that because it should appear in here in this drop-down so long as you are in the correct year for the campaign, not the reporting year, it's the campaign year. So if I have reports started up in 2020 or 2019, but it's for a 2021 election. 2021 election has to be in here, and then I will change the report in here and go back to whichever report I need. Okay. For contributions, let's go back into contributions. With this program, it is maintaining all the contributions that you receive. So if you receive multiple from one source, if you do not enter in their information, it cannot maintain that aggregate amount for you. So we recommend to enter in every single contribution. The contributions that don't need to be itemized on the report, they are not considered reportable because it's a $200 check. You enter it in here, and then it will appear in the aggregate amount with all the other contributions that are not considered reportable contributions for a lump sum on that summary page. So you will need to enter it in order to be able to have that work out. If you have, let's say, 1,000 different contributions that are below that contribution reporting amount, and you don't want to enter them in there, you can write a lump sum in here, but the program is not responsible for making sure that your aggregates are correct. You will put in the contributions that are not reportable and put in the lump sum amount. You are required to have and maintain the records of every single contribution that you receive, regardless of the amount. The dates, amounts, person's name, employer's name, occupation, and address for every single one. If you don't want to enter it in, it's possible, but I would say if you have 30 of them, you need to manually enter all of them into the program. Only those that are required to be itemized on the report will appear. All the rest will just become a lump sum. If it is currency, any amount in currency, so if somebody hands you a $10 bill, you're going to fill out their information in here and check currency. That will be disclosed in detail because those are required to appear on the report. Let's go over to in-kind. Oh, before I do that, bank account. If I had multiple accounts, I would click on this button and the drop-down will show the multiple accounts. Let's go to in-kind. For in-kind, you cannot change your bank account because it is not deposited. It's goods or services. If it is considered a 48-hour contribution that was received by the campaign, you'll check that box and you'll be able to file 48-hour notice with it. It defaults to the non-individual for in-kind. So if there's a committee, a party committee, or continuing political committee that made an in-kind contribution, for example, paying for signs, then you would put that information in here and select the type of committee. Let's look at our list. This show list is only in kind. You'll see that information in here. Okay. So again, I hope everybody understands that you need to report all of your contributions in here. They're not going to appear on the report, but they will. You can put basic information in there just for the sake of saving time. You can put the person's name and then the date received and amount received. Because it's not going to appear on the report if it's not a reportable contribution. Say you received an in-kind contribution that was only $200. You can just put in the name of the entity and then the date and the amount. It will become part of that aggregate amount of in-kind contributions that are $300 or less. That's in your summary table. All right. Now let's go to adjustments, refund of contributions. If you have something that you need to return, so an excessive contribution, then you can go over here. Let's take again somebody who had sent it over. You have to write in their name if you're returning it, or whatever the name is. And then you're going to search. It will populate in here. You have to select that one. And you cannot change any of these fields. So if you need to edit the contribution because you just wrote it wrong, you're going to be going into the actual contributions tab for monetary and edit it there. This is just a refund of that contribution. So you'll have to put in the check number, or if it's electronic, refunded that way online, then you can put that information in there, the date and the amount refunded. And then you will click save, okay? But again, these fields, you cannot edit these fields because it is something that you've already entered into the program. Okay, let's move on to dividends and interest. So dividends and interest is going to be from your bank account. You'll write that institution name in there, or whatever it is that you receive dividends and interest that you've entered into the program already. Make sure that it's in there, and then you will put in the information and the amount that gets disclosed on the report. Loan. So if you receive a loan, the loan will have to be entered in here. If it's from an individual, it's the individual name. If it's a non-individual, you have to put in that information in there, the amount. If it is a loan, they said, we'll pay for signs for you, but you owe us the money. So it's going to be a non-deposited loan. For you to report that, you will check the non-deposited here, so it won't hit your bank account as money, as funds coming into the report. So check that non-deposited, and then you can click on save. So we'll just have one in here. Okay, so we already showed a payment on this one, and you will see that the amount had changed in here because we had that already entered into the program. You can also forgive a loan. It will forgive the remainder of the loan, or if it's the entire loan. Then you will click save at the end. Okay, so if you've already made a payment toward it, you need to change your payment. If you reported the wrong amount for the loan to begin with, you need to go over to the expenditures, change what you had indicated as what you had paid, and then you can come back over here and show the other information in there. Okay, now I'm going to move over to expenditures. I hope that I'm answering all your questions. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask. Oh, let's see. Okay, so say you have 30 people that give you a $100 check each. You can do one of two things. What we recommend is at the very least putting in their name, date, and amount for those individuals. You don't have to fill in all of the individual information for those contributions, but you should have that in. In the off chance that you have, let's say, another fundraiser, you have a couple fundraisers and they attend 2 of them, you will need to go back to your original report and change out the amounts in there and correct that, as opposed to just adding them in the next reporting period if they gave in a different reporting period. So I recommend putting at the minimum a name and amount for each one, name, date, and amount. So just this top line, that, and down here under the monetary, if they were all monetary contributions. So name, date, and amount, and that will put it in the aggregate amount list. If you write in contributions of $300 or less in the aggregate, it is going to appear as a contribution that is in excess of $300 on the report. There's no way that you can change that on there. Every contribution is supposed to be entered into the program. So if you have a spreadsheet, you can always move their information over and have it uploaded, and it will come in here really quickly. Okay, let's move over to expenditures. Go back to the start screen, make sure we're in the correct file, then go over to expenses. Under expenditures, there are quite a few different types. You have the regular campaign expenses, other expenses, so say your office holding duties, then you would be able to select that. And then loan payments. So if you've entered a loan, you can make the payment here. If you have not entered the loan, you cannot simply select loan payment. Obligation payments, if you entered the expense originally in the program, then you can select it to pay down if it was not paid in full at the time it was incurred. Contributions made to others, other candidates or committees, expense made on behalf, owed to the committee, and refunded disbursements. Let's go through this one. So for this expenditure, it's going to look like it's a non-individual. If you need to change that, say you have get out the vote workers, you will click it to an individual because you need to report every single person that you gave money to, and you have to pay them by check. So you'll put that check number in there and everything else. Let's select one that we already have in here. If you have a credit card that you've used that is in the name of the campaign, so when you go to pay the credit card, you'll put in the credit card information in there, and you can add a subpayee. Adding a subpayee means if you use this card at Staples to buy supplies, you will need to put in Staples and the address and everything else, the date and amount, and then you will save it. It will automatically pop up another one of these screens and then another one and another one after you save if you want to just go through and add a whole bunch of expenditures at once. Once you save them in there, you will see this in here, all the different places that it was spent at. Make sure if you need to correct it because you wrote the wrong amount in there, you can always select that and edit it. So here's the information that came in. If you need to correct it, make whatever corrections and then click save. Now, once you have saved those in there, you're going to see in here that you can set the expenditure total with the sub-payees total. So when you write in your credit card company information here, the total expenses that you made in that period for this, you'll put that information in there and then hit the set total with the sub-payee total, and it will update that amount in there. So you don't have to have the amount right away. You can just add in all the expenses. Okay. I have a quick question that is more compliance side, but I will go over it here. If you've been filing reports for years on paper for a candidate, and now you are required to file electronically, you do not need to send us a new D1 electronically if you've already sent one in. It's only for this year going forward. So if you've never sent us a D1 form electronically, you will need to send us one and it will come through. If you've never sent us a D1, whether on paper or electronically, you will need to send us a D1, but you are required to file it electronically. Let's go into other expenses. In here, other expenses. Let's see our list and select one from our list. So say that we have an office rental space, we will enter in who it is that we're paying for that space, the check number, the date, and the total expenditure amount. It automatically populates the amount dispersed. If you have not paid it yet, so say it was incurred but not fully paid, you'll put in the total amount incurred and then only the amount that was actually dispersed. Select the category. We have a list of different types of categories here for expenditures. And then if you feel that it needs further description, please write that in here in the other description. If you feel you need even more of an explanation for this particular expenditure, say something had happened with the campaign, and you want to let the public know or explain what is going on with the campaign, you can write that in here. If for your sake of internal bookkeeping, you have information that you want to keep only for the campaign, so anybody who logs in that you've added into the program, you want to enter additional information, you can add that in here and then click save. Only this field will not appear in the report. All the other fields do appear in the report. Okay, let's move on to loan payment. So loan payment, you can only select a loan that you've already entered in, or if you put it in midstream, you're required to put it in midstream, those that are not received in this period. So if you've moved it over from paper to here, you'll put that in that midstream area. So here is the one loan. You can add what you've paid and dispersed and the amount dispersed. You can view payments that you've already entered into the program. You'll see that in here. There's also, if you've already entered something in a past reporting period, you can go over here to Loan Manager and select a loan that you've entered in a different period, and you can forgive that loan. You can view it and forgive it in here. So the date and amount and the date received, and then click forgive if it has been forgiven. Okay. Obligation payment. So you can only pay down an obligation that you've entered into the program. So choose an obligation to pay, let's say here, the signed company. That information, put in the amount, and then if you have put in the amount that you had incurred but not fully paid, that automatically defaults to match. Sorry, it defaults to match in here for the dispersed amount. If it's not the same, please correct that and put in the amount that you had paid. And then this is what's still outstanding. You can put in the check, date, and amount and save. I'm just going to ask you to fill this in. Contribution made to other candidates, fill in the information for the candidate, what type of candidate they are. You will have to manually type in the election date. We're selected from here. We don't have a population for the election date and their location. So indicating all the different locations within the state of New Jersey. It's broken down by first the legislative district and then county. So alphabetical by county with their municipalities under the county. So we can see in here if we have any. So you'll see in there the expense made to a gubernatorial candidate, their election date and location, the date and the amount. And then you'll click save. Liking contributions, the same goes for expenditures. We have the 48-hour expense. So you can select that if it's considered to be in that 48-hour time frame. Okay. I will go back to contributions in a moment to go over reimbursement. So let's go on to here. For expense made on behalf of, if you have made an expenditure on behalf of another candidate. So it wasn't a check given directly to the candidate. It was, let's say, to a signed company, but there's a benefiting candidate. You will put in that pay name, so the signed company. We can show the list of one that we have already entered in here. So the production company for this one. And then you'll see who benefited that we had entered in there. You can always add more benefiting candidates in there. Owed to the committee. So what is still owed to the committee? You'll see in here, we have Elizabeth Stevens in here, and you will see media consulting. They owe the committee. So refunded disbursements and reimbursements. Here's something that I just want to go over quickly. I had received a question about how to list a reimbursement. So a refunded disbursement or reimbursement would be something like a voided check or a lost check. Since you showed it as an expense, you're going to now be putting in that information in here, so it becomes like a negative expense. So it adds the funds back into the campaign. If it is a deposit that you put down on a rental space or a deposit that you put down for something, but you're getting your deposit back, you would enter in that information in here for reimbursement there or refunded disbursement. If, however, you have to, a different situation in there would be if you gave an excessive, or sorry, if you received an excessive contribution from somebody, then you need to do it as an adjustment. That is a refund of a contribution that you had received that will go back to the person who gave it to you. So if you had already entered somebody in as giving you money, then you can always select them and then they will their information will populate in here and you will show how much it is and when you're giving money back to them. So there's a distinction between those two types. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so we've gone through contributions and expenditures. Now we're going to move on a little bit to the viewing of the report. So let's take a look at the report. You can view the report in its entirety by selecting this one here. If you had selected amounts that were, or contributions or expenditures, they get put together in as a 48-hour report through this program. If you want to review those, then you can check that box. So it's going to give you a PDF in here. This is what it's going to look like when it gets sent to us. You're going to see that it's a preview. This has not been filed. We don't actually have access to the reports that you've entered. If you create an R1, an account for filing the R1 and you never submit a report to us, we will never see any reports that you've entered into the program. Unless you have a technical difficulty and you need to speak with somebody in IT and then you want them to remote in, that is the only way that they would see something in there, if you allow them to see that. Otherwise, no one in compliance, no one in legal sees any of the reports that you've created and not submitted to us. Also, when it comes to setting up your account, we need to speak with the consultant or our IT department knows if there was an email that had registered an account, and that's it. We don't know what reports are under that account, just that somebody registered, but it doesn't mean that they've fulfilled any filing requirements registering with us. So you can take a look at this here. All of this is pulled from the report where you've entered in your data. This is going to be the receipts and expenditure summary and then a net financial summary. The issue with that some people have with this is if you have non-deposited items, they're not going to appear in here correctly. The way that you will see them in the system that should be correct would be under the depository summary. In here, it should reflect what you actually have in your account. This one appears to be a negative balance because they've made more expenditures than they've had in receipts. So just be aware of that. If you had a previous paper report, this is going to appear in your cumulative to date column in addition to this report. So that amount will not match. If this is your very first report and you're doing it electronically, both columns will match. So let's take a look at the actual report. You'll see in here the contributions. If this one was a $200 contribution, it appears on the report because it says it's currency. We had checked that box for currency. This is over the amount, the contribution amount being reportable, so it's 300. You'll see also here in this summary table that we have monetary contributions of $300 or less. You'll see $100 in there, and it's not going to appear itemized on the report. So we can take a look through that. As you can see, it's not here on the report. Only those amounts that need to be itemized will be itemized. And then over here, you're going to look at your refunded disbursement. It's a voided check that we had in there. So it's going to look like money coming back into the campaign. Now over here, you have, let's see, the loans that were received, and you have your adjustments, your expenditures. If it was the credit card, this is how it's going to appear. So the credit card up here and all the items that were underneath it. And then just, you'll see the rest of the expenditures in there. If you had paid and made that expense on behalf of somebody, you'll see how that is listed in the report. And then let's just scroll to the end here, certification. We did not certify the report, so there is no signature in there. E-file a report. Before I get to this part where I'm going to certify the report, I'm going to take a brief minute to just pause. I'm going to turn my mic off. And I'm going to try and address any questions. If you guys have any questions, just write them in there before I go through and certify, okay? Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions in there, so I am going to keep going into this part. The reason why I didn't want to continue with certifying and filing the report is because once you file it, you're going to have to start an amendment, and that changes the report a bit. So I just wanted to go over this as the original report. I will briefly explain the amendment process after I get through this section. So if I had multiple people who are part of this report, I'm the candidate and treasurer for this training seminar, but if I was only the candidate, I would also need to have the treasurer in here, and those would need to be certified. If I started this report, I would certify for myself because my information is saved in this program. I am the one who created this file. Now for the next one, for another candidate or a different treasurer, some information like that, they would be in this list as well. You're either going to request that they certify a report, or you're going to certify on their behalf, one of the two options, in which case you will have to put in their registration and PIN and their email, and then you can certify if you have that. Or you click request to certify, and they will get an email. They'll click on that, come into the program and certify. If, however, after you have certified or after the other person has certified, and you make a change to the report before you file it with ELEC, it will wipe out your certification for that individual or for whoever it is that certified the report. Let me show you an example. We'll go up here to add edit contributions. And let's say in here, I'm going to make a change. I changed the amount in here and I clicked on save. Or even if I looked at it and I clicked on save. Now that it's been saved, I'm going to go to the e-file, and you will see my certification has disappeared. If you're requesting somebody to certify, you can see the request date if you had clicked on request to certify. That does not mean that it will be certified by them, but you'll see at least when you did that, when you asked a person to certify. Oh, let's see here. Okay, so let's see in here. There's another question that I had received. So before I go through with this, I want to take a look really quickly at the midstream in there. So let's go back here. We're going to go into the midstream. And this is where you're going to be entering in if you're switching from paper over to electronic. You'll be putting in all the paper cumulative to date in there and then save that in the system. I'm not sure I received a question asking about a midterm conversion to electronic filing. I'm not sure what that question is addressing. This would be for somebody who had filed before, previously on paper, and they're switching over to electronic. Or if they're not filling out this top section, they can add a midstream loan. If they closed out their, let's say their general election report and they had loans that they moved forward to this, that is where they will add it in here. I don't know if this addresses the question. We do have the upload manager to add different things in there, the same way that we did for contributions. So if you have expenditures that you make to the same companies all the time, that can be uploaded in here. So let's go ahead and e-file the report. So I'm going to certify. And unless it's the final report for the selection where you have finished all your receipts and expenditures, there's a zero balance in the account, and activity has been completed and the bank account has been closed, that's when you will also select final. That's only after the last report that has been submitted. It is not going to be for, oh, I'm finalizing that this report is true. Final is for you're done with everything. Okay, let's see. The great thing about this program is you can log out and log back in as many times as you want to. Updating it on a regular basis is something that I recommend. You will need to file a D1 separately from this, but if you've already submitted a D1 for the election, so say I submitted a D1 in 2019 and I've been filing quarterly, I don't need to send a new D1, even if it was sent on paper before, because that is already attributed to the campaign. If this is something that I'm just starting now, I do need to file the D1 electronically because I've never submitted it before, and everything being submitted this year has to be filed electronically. That would be outside of this program. That would be directly on our short forms on our website, as I had addressed in the beginning of this. Okay, now I'm going to click File with ELEC. It says make sure that everybody who needs to file has certified and then you're ready to file. So make sure that everybody has certified. Proceed to file. Now you're going to get this up here. You will have full access to this report if you click Amendment to begin an amendment. You also have full access to what has been submitted to us. You can download it right now. You can print out this confirmation page. I recommend keeping this confirmation number. You never know if there's a problem with the state having internet problems. I'm not sure if that will occur, but life is full of surprises and we never know what we're going to encounter. So make sure you just keep that confirmation number. We can always look to see if something got lost in somewhere along the way from when you submitted it to when it was received, when it was supposed to be received. But we will need to see that confirmation number in order to be able to look for it. Now, after you've done that, you can either click on this, go to the report period selection, or you can go up here to the start button. Either way, it's going to take you to the same place, this main screen. Now you will see on the left-hand side here, R1 webinar campaign. The R1 webinar campaign is what we just submitted. It is a PDF. This is now going to have that in black, that it was filed at this time on this date. You'll be able to review everything. If after you've submitted to us, you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I've forgotten something, you're going to go back here and click on the Begin Amendment. Over here, if you are not sure whether you filed a report or not, so once you file this report, you will see that it has a check, a grayed out check in the filed column. When you start another reporting period, it's going to come up with another one here. This will go away because it's going to then be in the second report, which would be the 11-day. It automatically proceeds to the next possible report that you have to file with us. So just be aware of that. If you want to make a change or amend the 29-day report, you'll have to select the box for the previous one, and then you'll be able to select to begin amendment. But that's where you'll see the report in the system. If you're running into any user problems or program problems, that is not a compliance related question. If it's it keeps giving me an error, it won't load the page. That is more of an IT question than compliance. Compliance is going to be able to answer, where do I enter in a loan? How do I pay back a loan? How do I have to enter in all my contributions? Anything that's compliance related is going to be answered by a compliance officer. Error codes that you're receiving with a script or something along those lines, you will be able to contact us and ask for IT, and they'll be able to walk you through it. If they feel it's more compliance related, then they will shoot your information over to us in compliance, and we will answer those questions. Let's see here. There are a couple more questions. So if you're the treasurer for multiple campaigns, this is how it works. I know I've gone over this a couple times, but just as a refresher, you're in here, you're in this current report. This is the webinar campaign. If I want to add another one, say I'm the treasurer for another single candidate committee, I will click on add a new reporting cycle. I will say this is another candidate committee that I am a treasurer. Let's see, and then we will put in different street in Trenton. Office type. It's going to be the same election year, and I am the treasurer. I can save that in here. Now I will have to select the reporting year and the 29-day. Now I will have a list in here. There are two. If I go into this one and I want to add a user. So I'm the treasurer, I want to add a candidate. I will click on the invite new user. They're going to get an email. When they come in and log into the program, the only thing that they are going to see is another candidate committee. If they click the dropdown, they will only see another candidate committee. They will not see the R1 webinar campaign committee because I did not invite them to that, because this is the account that I created. They only have access to what you give them access to. If you want to, let's say I'm the candidate that created this and I had a treasurer, and I don't want that treasurer to be my treasurer anymore, I am replacing them. I created this account. I can change that treasurer to no longer be able to have access to this report. or future reports. Sorry, they have access to the one that they were added to originally, but they won't have access to any future reports. You can change their title in there, but be aware that there are certain things that happen with the program that if people get changed out and they are unable to get into the program because of something that happens with it, you need to contact our office and we'll walk you through that process. So they will have, if I have 4 different candidates that I represent, they will only have access to their own report. They will never see the other candidates' reports, so long as that is what I indicated. Okay, well, that will conclude our training here today. Again, don't forget that a lot of the information that I've gone over in here are going to be in the instructional videos. Those instructional videos are right here on our website. You're going to see this on the e-filing homepage underneath the ELEC e-file. It says ELEC e-file instructional videos. We have the overview that goes over everything that I had just gone through. Not as much detail, but the registration and creating a reporting cycle is an extreme detail. Adding users is an extreme detail. Midstream filers, previous paper, refs program switching over, outstanding obligations and loans that are being moved forward, that goes in extreme detail. And it's going to show you, particularly with registration and creating a report, exactly what it looks like in your email and what you will see. So they're quick, short YouTube videos that we have created. Just take a look at that. And if you don't feel it's answered in those videos, feel free to call our office if you need assistance walking through the program. We're always available to answer questions Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Just give us a call. Thank you so much for attending today. I hope I answered your questions. I hope that you feel like you're more adept at being able to fill out this program and to file it with us. Remember, this is for R1 filers. Not everyone is an R1 filer, so I recommend going over to the candidates tabs here and selecting in here forms and instructions. The manual. It's going to go over everything in there. All the all the amounts have changed in here for when an R1 is required to be filed versus the A1 or the A2. We also have contribution limits charts on our website and the reporting dates for campaigns. You'll see that in here. So be aware, this is all available for you. Again, thank you for attending. If you have any other questions, I will stay online for a couple minutes with my mic muted. And then if I don't have any more questions, feel free to call our office. Thank you.